4. Welcome back to our study in the book of Romans. This is session 112. And we are going to finish this up before 200, I promise. Actually, you know, I know we've been getting back. I told you last week, somebody emailed me and they said, you know, I was listening through Sonship and you were in the 70s. You said, we're almost ready to go back to Romans 8. And I noticed you've got 106 up now. How much longer till Romans 8? I emailed them back. None of your business. So, what? What?
We hadn't been coming here since the 70s. But we're close.
It seems like it, though, doesn't it? By the way, well, I have a bunch of stuff on the board from the break, don't I?
Well, I was thinking, what if Jesus is waiting till you get done?
Oh!
That's pressure.
Yeah, that's pressure on my part, you know. What? Ooh.
That's what Bill and I were talking about. When you're here, you know, in Sunday school, they're telling you that everything will happen in the Word has been done to the four corners of the earth. Well, now with the division of the Word, is it the grace that we have to take to the four corners now?
No, you're not going to take grace to the four corners, but, you know, well, I mean, it'd be good if we could. It'd be good if we could. What has to happen is grace has to get shut down. And so, anyway, by the way, we were talking about Paul because Bud had a very interesting question. Paul's, 3 years from the time he leaves Damascus, goes away into Arabia, before he ever comes back and then goes to Jerusalem. And it's during that time that he gets this revelation from the Lord about the mystery and all these kinds of issues. And he says, was Paul a fully educated son when he came out of there? I mean, he only had 3 years. And I felt myself getting boxed in, you know. But you know what? When you think about that, because really, but Bud's observation was, he'll be like the remnant in the tribulation. He would just hold up somewhere, doing nothing but being educated by the Lord Jesus. Well, first of all, the first advantage he had was that. He wasn't being educated by Mike McDaniel. He'd been educated by Jesus Christ. Now, that's a plus. Now, second, that goes without saying. But the second thing is, think about this. We're 2 hours every other Sunday. I'm sorry, every Sunday. Sorry, I'm sorry. Who are you people? 2 hours every, we take a couple of Sundays off. So let's just say we have 50 Sundays times 2. That's 100 sessions. Let's call them an hour. But there's 100 hours, okay? You realize at 10 hours a day, that takes us a year. You realize that for Paul, meeting with the Lord for 10 hours, you're talking about 10 days. Every year we're in it, he can cover that in 10 days. 3 years? Can somebody do the math on that? How would we do that? All right, in 100, in a year, we're spending 100 hours studying sonship. If Paul does it 10 hours a day, he can do 100 hours in 10 days. So if Paul's doing 3 years, this is 100 hours in 10 days. So in 3 years, what is that? 365 times 3. Let's just even it out at 1,000 days. Let's say he takes a vacation. He's got 1,000 days. If every 10 days he does 100 hours, so we divide this by 10, that would be 100 times 100, right? And that means Paul has, at the end of 3 years, he's got over 10,000 hours.
Living with.
Yeah, with Jesus.
We'll never get that.
Bob says we'll never get that. But, I mean, so it makes sense that it takes us as long as it does, right?
Well, yeah, that correlates out to 100 years.
But I'm sad you brought that up.
We're all going to be like Doc sitting.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, well, I'll be like Doc going, I'm not going to get my sonship. Oh, gosh. Doc, that's great. I can't.
Y'all don't stand a chance.
Yeah, you know what? He's laughing right now. He's laughing. Okay, let's get back to this. Wow. And we just spent 15 of our, few minutes there. Okay. Let's see where I left you off here. I was showing this thing about generation, and we're talking about who shall declare his generation. The Lord does have a generation. Now, I want to show you that this righteous generation is also talks about a seed that will serve the Lord. Again, I'm just trying to show you, it's not about a period of time, it's about a group of people. Psalm 22:27, all the ends of the world shall remember and turn unto the Lord, and all the kindreds of the nations shall worship before thee. For the kingdom is the Lord's, and he is the governor among the nations. Anybody want to tell me when that happens? That's in the millennium, right? It's in the kingdom. All they that be fat upon earth shall eat and worship, and all that go down to the dust shall bow before him, and none can keep alive his own soul. A seed shall serve him, it shall be accounted to the Lord for a what? Generation. Yeah. This is not about I'm just trying to show you. This is not trying to teach you a period of time. You're not supposed to be calculating some prophecy off of this. This is about a group of people. They shall come and declare his righteousness unto a people that shall be born, that he hath done this. And now we're going to take you to Psalm 24 to show you again. It's not about 40 years or 70 years. Psalm 24:1, a Psalm of David. The earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. For he hath founded it upon the seas and established it upon the floods. Who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord? Or who shall stand in his holy place? He that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his soul unto vanity, nor sworn deceitfully, he shall receive the blessing from the Lord, and righteousness from the God of his salvation. This is the generation of them that seek him, that seek thy face, O Jacob, Selah. Do you see, this is about a people. Am I getting that through to you? This is not about a period of time. All of a sudden you read about this generation in Matthew 24 and now people are whipping out the numbers. And that's the mistake. By the way, you can't apply those numbers to the dispensation of grace anyway. Verse 7, lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lift up your everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. You know what you're talking about? A generation alive in the millennium that has come from all the ages. They're called a generation. Here's the next one. About now, let's get into the Gospels to talk about the Lord doing this. Matthew 1:16. But whereunto shall I liken this generation? You know who he's talking about here, don't you? He's talking about the apostate nation. It is likened to children sitting in the markets and calling unto their fellows. He's fixing to correct them here. Let me give you the next one. Matthew 12:34. O generation of vipers. So what have we got here? 40 years of snakes? This is not about a period of time. You know what he's doing? He's identifying them. And by the way, he's going to make a difference between his generation and this generation of vipers. By the way, is that two separate periods of time? No. See, they could be happening at the same time. And they are. Here's the next one. Matthew 12:39. But he answered and said unto them, an evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign. What was just asked to him to make him say that? Yeah, give us a sign. And what does he say? An evil and adulterous. Why does he even use the word generation? You know why? Because that's the word that's being used to categorize this group of people. Do you see what I'm saying? And he says, and there shall be no sign be given to it. This group of people. But the sign of prophet Jonah. That's going to be to that group right there that was up to his death or burial and resurrection. Is that generation going to show up again? Yes, it is. By the way, over 2 millennia later. Yeah, boy, add that to the date. So here's the next one. Matthew 12:45. Then goeth he and taketh with himself 7 other spirits more wicked than himself. They enter in and dwell there, and the last state of that man is worse than the first. Even so shall it be also unto this wicked generation. Why didn't he just say, to you wicked people, to the wicked nation? Why didn't he just say it that way? because he's establishing the use of this word generation to identify a group of people who have rejected the truth and rejected him. So when he comes along in Matthew 24 and he talks about this generation, you're not supposed to be thinking about, oh, let's see, is that 30 years or 70 years? You're supposed to be thinking, there's a specific group he has in mind, not a period of time that he has in mind. Here's the next one, Matthew 23:33. Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers. By the way, does anybody know where that comes from? That comes right out of the Old Testament prophets. He didn't just think of something bad and go, you bunch of snakes, like that was what popped into his head. He's using terminology that was given back in the Old Testament prophets when they talked about this very group that was going to be present when the Messiah was here. They were supposed to read that, hear that label and go, you talking about me? Because that's what, you didn't get that, did you? Okay, 2 of you did. God bless you. But you see what I'm saying? He's trying to make a connection here. By the way, we went back and saw how that generation was used back in the Old Testament prophets. There's a generation that have teeth as knives. There's a generation that honors not father and mother. There's a generation that thinks they're clean, yet they're not washed from their filthiness. There's a generation. I mean, to me, I just see it. I go, generation, 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 generation. He's talking about these people, and you get to Matthew 24, and all of a sudden our brain falls out on the floor, and we start adding up years. Okay, that's just me. That's just how I see it. Not a big deal to you, but it is to me. All right, here's the next one. Mark 8:38. Whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him also shall the Son of Man be ashamed when he cometh in the glory of his Father with his holy angels. Here's the next one. He answereth him and saith, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? Here's the next one. Mark 13:24. But in those days after the tribulation, the sun will be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, the stars of heaven shall fall, the powers in heaven shall be shaken. They'll see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. Verily I say unto you that this generation... See, by the time you get to Matthew 24, you know what? You've been inundated with this idea of a generation. Now, why would he make the statement, this generation won't pass? When you say this generation won't pass till all these things be done, and you know something then. What do you know?
Those people are always going to be there.
That is correct. That's one of the ways that you know that the people in that specific group labeled this evil and adulterous generation is going to be present all the way up to the Advent. That's what he's talking about. Now, let's see. Where am I taking you next? All right, anyway, I just wanted to take a sidestep and see that. And by the way, Peter even talks about this. You want to see how Peter describes this to the righteous? Look in his epistle, 1 Peter 2:9. But ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. You've seen this before. Is that about a particular period of time? No, I mean, he's not talking about 40 years or 70 years. He's talking about a group of people. I'm just trying to establish that with you. If you follow the doctrine through, when you read that phrase, there should be some thinking that's automatically generated in you. Okay, now let's get ourselves back to that Proverbs chapter 30, verse 11, where we got off on this thing. There is a generation, remember, that curseth father and mother. Remember, and I'm going to reread all that because we read all that. And we know that generation was present during the earthly ministry of Jesus. And, oh, by the way, I did give you, I'm just going to pass over it because I just talked about it. But look, here it is. Here's that Matthew 15:3. He says, But he answered and said unto them, Why do ye also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? For God commanded, saying, Honor thy father and mother, and he that curseth father and mother, let him die the death. But ye say, Whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, It is a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honor not his father and his mother, he shall be free See, he said, you're going to go. Now, that's not fully explained there, but in another passage it is. You're going to go to the temple and say, oh, no, I'm going to give this away. And they go, well, you don't have to spend that on your mother and father then. So see, now he's free from that. He says, thus have you made the commandment of God of none effect by your tradition. He's going to take those very issues that were sitting there. And I give you this next one too. One of you scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites, for you're like unto whited sepulchres. I can't get over that. And like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but inward are full of dead men's bones and of all uncleanness. And didn't they appear to be, in fact, you know what he said? That outwardly you appear to men to be righteous. He said, but your Father sees in your heart, and boy, you're rotten to the core. And he's addressing all of those issues that we were just looking at there in Proverbs. And that's all supposed to make sense. Okay, now, beginning at verse 15, now what I'm going to do is take you down to Proverbs 30 again, and we're going to take you down to verse 15. And although Agar is making a prophecy and he doesn't understand about it, it is something that the level 3 sons are going to understand and that they're going to be talking to the rest of the remnant about. But I want to make a comment about it before I put it up on the board. I'm going to show you some things that are hidden. They are dark sayings. In fact, well, Proverbs that the normal son won't understand. Are you going to be able to read the words?
Yes.
Are you going to be able to know what words mean? I mean, as far as just the meaning of a word? Yes. But because it's a proverb, you know that it's not about what's obvious. It's about what's under what's obvious. Yes? That's the part that's hidden. Because I don't want you to encounter someone that comes along to say, oh, well, look, I mean, it's talking about this, you know. It's just like the policy of evil is called the strange woman. It's not really talking about a specific woman that's going to walk in the back door. But it's making an analogy here. So, and we can understand things about the strange woman. This is talking about things we flat can't understand. And here we go. Proverbs 30:15. The horse leech hath 2 daughters, crying, give, give. There are 3 things that are never satisfied, yea, 4 things say not, it is enough. Now just looking at me and looking at the PowerPoint, does anybody want to talk about why the horse leech has 2 daughters? I don't even know what a horse leech is. Y'all have horses. Bud, what's a horse leech? Nancy, you know what a horse leech is?
Great big leech.
A great big leech. A leech the size of a horse. I mean, I have no idea.
Leech is L-E-E-C-H.
Well, I don't know. This is a biblical thing. Some of those spellings, I don't know. I don't know. I can't tell you what a horse. I don't know. Is it something that gets on a horse? Yeah. Call me leech. I don't know. Okay. The horse leech. You can already see that's kind of cryptic, right? Yeah. All right. Now here's the thing I want to say to you. What you're about to see is now a list. 5 times you're going to be given 4 things. Look what it says. The horse leech hath 2 daughters, crying, give, give. That's 1 for each daughter. There are 3 things that are never satisfied, but before the verse ends, yea, 4 things say it is not enough. Now, here's the next one. Oh, I did that again, didn't I? That's the thing I want to emphasize. 4 things. I want you to see each one of these, you're going to be given 5 of these in a row. There be 3 things which are too wonderful for me, yea, 4 which I know not. That's in verse 18. Now skip down to verse 21. For 3 things the earth is disquieted, and for 4 which it cannot bear. And then we skip down again to verse 24. There be 4 things which are little upon the earth, but they are exceeding wise. And then you got one more sitting in verse 29. There be 3 things which go well, yea, 4 are comely in going. You notice, not only is it, you notice he doesn't just skip to 4, but a lot of times, one time he started with 2, and he went to 3. Remember the horse leech had 2 daughters? And then he went to 3, and then he went to 4. The next time he starts with 3 and goes to 4. The next time he starts with 3 and goes to 4. The next time he goes straight to 4. And now he comes back and he goes 3 and back to 4. And those 3s are not unimportant, and neither is the single mention of 2. But my point to you is there is only one group of people on the face of the earth that's going to understand what that's about and how in the world horse leeches apply to the remnant in the tribulation. And that's men of understanding. Men and women of understanding finding themselves out in the day of wrath that have become educated sons. And they're going to open that up and they're going to look at that. Just for curiosity, I would love to be in a group where some man of understanding went, would you like to know about those 2 horse leech daughters and the 3rd thing and the 4th thing? And you want me to tell you what that tells you about what's about to happen to you by this son of perdition, this man of sin up here. This tells you something, and not even he knows it. Wouldn't you love to be in on that conversation?
No. I'm going to be in the heavenly.
You're going to be in the heavenly places, right? Right. Well, I didn't mean in place of. I just meant if you're a member of the remnant, wouldn't you love to, huh?
Aquatic blood-sucking worm differing from the common leech in its larger size and in the formation of its jaws.
Oh, yum. Okay, there's a horse leech. Well, okay. But there's something about that. Now, by the way, if it's not about the obvious, then you know it's really not about what? It's really not about a horse leech. But there is something about using horse leech that's going to tell, if you have an understanding, it'll tell you something, right? You know? Yeah, well, it is. Now, what's interesting to me is that 5 times now we've seen these 4 things that are mentioned. And I told you, don't come to me after the service and go, hey, what does this mean right here? Because I have absolutely no clue. I'm going to tell you something else. Not even David and Solomon knew this. The guy that wrote it, you got a name like that, you don't know anything. He don't know it. Nobody, let me ask you, if you become a man of understanding who's attained to wise counsels in the dispensation of grace, can you open that up and know what that is? No, you can't. You know why? Because your doctrine didn't teach you about Proverbs. Is there something you are going to be talked about, but it's in our dispensation that's the equivalent of that? The answer is yes. There's some things you're going to know that other folks are not going to know. Only a man of understanding that's attained to wise counsels are going to be able to know about that. Anyway, and we're going to go to Thessalonians and we're going to look at some things. But what I want to do here is I want to get you back, and what I want to do is I want to look at the details of these, because I think this is kind of fun to look at. And since it's our only time to do it, let's just get it all out of our system. Actually, I'm just getting it out of my system. Y'all are just happen to be along for the ride on this one, because I couldn't resist. I started to just say, I'm just going to leave it right there. But there's so much interesting stuff in here, I thought, I can't leave this alone. So here it is. Back to this first of the 5. Proverbs 30:15. The horse leech hath 2 daughters, crying, Give, give. There are 3 things that are never satisfied, yea, 4 things say not, it is enough. And here they are. The grave and the barren womb, the earth that is not filled with water, that would be imperial. Okay. The fire that saith not, it is enough. What strikes you, by the way? The eye that mocketh at his father and despiseth to obey his mother, the ravens of the valley shall pluck it out, and the young eagle shall eat it. Now just look at that whole proverb, and what strikes you as strange about that? Other than just the whole thing generally? Oh yeah, there are all kinds of animals involved. When you talk about the horse, you see, when I first read that, I thought, okay, the horse leech hath 2 daughters that say it's not enough, and then it says 3 things are never satisfied, 4 things say it's not enough. So I'm thinking, you know what? The first 2 things have to do with those daughters of the horse leech. But when you read it, it doesn't have anything to do with the horse leech. Now you could say, obviously, this is the obvious. Those blood-sucking horse leeches probably never think they've gotten enough blood. They're probably always sucking that blood out of the animal. That's the obvious, though, isn't it? What's really going on here, it's not about... See, anybody could come along and read this and go, well, the Antichrist is never going to give up. Well, thank you for your in-depth analysis. Because that's not what understanding this proverb is about. That's laying right there on the surface. Any goofus could look at that and figure that out. But it's going to take a man of understanding. Okay. Some of you are going like, well, I didn't figure that out. I guess I'm worse than a goofus. But I'm not trying to imply that. But what I'm trying to say is there's something here. But look, verse 16. The grave and the barren womb. He's counting that as one. Doesn't that strike you as a little bit odd? And those seem to be two different things. I mean, absolutely. The next one. The earth. And see, what you have is... Well, you have the grave and a semicolon, and the barren womb and a semicolon, the earth that's not filled with water and a semicolon, the fire that saith not's enough. Now there's 4, but then verse 17, the eye that mocketh out of fire. Well, that looks like 5, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't that? I mean, just the construction of that looks a little odd. All right, now I'm just trying to point that out. Let's do the next one. Proverbs 30:18. There be 3 things which are too wonderful for me, yea, 4 which I know not. The way of an eagle in the air, and he's not just when he's talking about the way of an eagle, the obvious thing is I look up at an eagle and I go, wow, isn't that great? God's just wonderful. Well, that would be the obvious. That's not what the proverb is about. That doesn't tell you anything about what's fixing to happen to you in the day of wrath. But it's supposed to. The way of an eagle in the air, the way of a serpent upon a rock, the way of a ship in the midst of the sea, and the way of a man with a maid. Such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth and wipeth her mouth and saith, I have done no wickedness. I got to tell you, that took a turn at the end of that I did not see coming. You know what that was kind of like? That was kind of like saying, honey, happy anniversary. Here's your favorite chocolates. I've got you some flowers. Here's a gift. I'm taking you out to eat, and by the way, I ran over the dog on the way into the driveway. That just kind of seems out of place, doesn't it? Because he's talking about there are 3 things which are too wonderful, and 4 which I know not, and then he follows it up with this adulterous woman that's kind of going, okay. That just seems odd. Proverbs 30:21. For 3 things the earth is disquieted, and for 4 which it cannot bear. For a servant when he reigneth, for a fool when he's filled with meat, for an odious woman when she is married. And by the way, I made a note here. Odious means hateful, horrible, loathsome, revolting, detestable, repellent, repulsive, and obnoxious. In short, not good. A servant when he reigneth, a fool when he's filled with meat, an odious woman when she is married. Look, and a handmaid that is heir to her mistress. Now when you look at that, he's not trying to tell you about, don't make your handmaid, an heir. That's not what he's really talking about here. This really has to do, knowing what this is supposed to be doing, knowing it's a prophecy, and knowing it's sitting out there for those in the tribulation, can you see how Satan could look at this all day long and not be any closer at the end of the day than he was when he first read it? Man, God is a genius, isn't he? But a man of understanding is going to look at that and he's going to go, wow. Wow. And unless he explains that to the remnant, they won't have a prayer of understanding that. Here's the next one, Proverbs 30:24. There be 4 things which are little upon the earth, they're exceeding wise. The ants are a people not strong, yet they prepare their meat in the summer. The conies are but a feeble folk, yet make they their houses in the rocks. The locusts have no king, yet they go forth all of them by bands. The spider taketh hold with her hands, and is in kings' palaces. Now, there's some obvious things that are there, but again, what's really going to be necessary is to see below the surface. And the last one here, Proverbs 30:29. There be 3 things which go well, yea, 4 are comely in going. a lion which is strongest among beasts, and turneth not away for any, a greyhound, and he-goat also, and a king, against whom there is no rising up. Boy, that's a disparate list, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, 'cause people across the street from me have goats, and I'm looking at that, and I'm not impressed. Really, I mean, I'm not looking at that, and I'm going like, man, that's just like a king against whom there's no rising up. I'm looking at that, and I'm going, that thing is filthy. But there's something about the proverb here. And again, all I can, and by the way, when we get, and I don't think I have any verses for it, I guess I don't. But when you get into chapter 31, you all know, you've heard it every Mother's Day forever. You've heard this sermon. What's in Proverbs 31?
About the what?
The virtuous woman. Yeah. She's, you know.
Could that be the bride?
And you know, no, that's, no, that, most preachers think that's put over there in Proverbs 31 so they have a Mother's Day sermon every year. That is not what that's about. And really, when you look at that, it talks about, you know, how she gets up early and she works hard and she trades her wares and she makes wise investments and she takes care of her husband and she just looks like this model wife. It's not about that at all. That's what's lying on the surface of that. That's like looking at the policy of evil being, I mean, it's even worse, but it's like looking at the policy of evil being described as the strange woman, and you look at someone on the street and go, there's the policy of evil. You missed it. Well, depending on who you're pointing at. But I mean, you know, you missed it. And I'm just trying to show you that these things are way more complicated than they are. And I think for us to go over and try to pull the stuff out of there. Do you remember the two analogies he gave you back in Proverbs 30? If you go to someone who is learned, they're going to say, I can't read this because why? It's sealed. If this is sealed, how can I be so firm in my belief that no one's going to get it? Because God has sealed this up. And if you and for the rest of us, you know what that's like? And we're unlearned about that. If the book was handed to us, we would say, well, I can't read that because I don't know anything about it. Okay. When is this going to be revealed? Well, over in the day of wrath. That's when it will. I want to take you to Daniel 12, and I want to show you the angel Gabriel talking to Daniel there. And I want to show you something very interesting that he says to Daniel about these issues. Daniel 12:1, and at that time shall Michael stand up. What I got left here? Is that still working? Okay. At that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even at that same time. And by the way, when is that time of trouble? What's that a reference to? Sure. There you go. And at that time the people shall be delivered, every one that should be found written in the book. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. 2 generations there, right? And they shall be wise, and they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. But thou, O Daniel, now remember he's given Daniel a lot of details about the timeline and about the kingdoms. He talks about beasts and heads and horns and all that kind of bit. But then look what he says here. Shut up the words and seal the book even to the time of the end. So even the things that were given to Daniel, was there more that Daniel wanted to know? In fact, he even says it. Yes, what about this? And the angel's going to say, this is sealed up. Not even, by the way, did Daniel have any wisdom?
Oh, yeah.
Not even Daniel had enough wisdom to know what was sealed. God seals that up. No man's going to be able to break that. It says, even to the time of the end, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Now, this verse has taken a beating from prophecy preachers. Because what they do is they read that knowledge shall be increased, and they stand up and they go, boy, you know how much technology we've had in the last 40 years, and computers are able to do today, and what we're able to do about, sending stuff into space, and cars, and communications, and medical advances, and they give you all these, they spend a whole sermon giving you all these details, and they're talking about knowledge will be increased, and thereby we know that we're living in the time of the end. Please, just give me some signal that you understand that that's just not what's taken place in this verse. This is Daniel. The time of the end is the end of Israel's program, folks. He's not talking about the dispensation of grace wasn't even known about when this was written. He's not talking about us. He's not talking about now. Enough of that. I just say that really for the folks that are, I don't know who all watches these DVDs and how much they've skipped or anything like that, so I'm just making that point. But that is, by the way, when it says knowledge shall be increased, tell me what that will be. Tell me what it is.
The man of understanding.
There you go. That's when a man of understanding is going to be given knowledge that nobody's going to have. He's going to be able to open up a sealed book and know what that is. Or to put it in the words of Proverbs 1:6, he's going to understand a proverb and its interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. That's exactly what he's going to be able to do. And now I want to show you something. That's the knowledge increased. It's not talking about technology or communications. That's not it. God's not really too concerned about that. Well, I can't wait till they get to the place where they can actually email while they're traveling down the highway, because when they get to the place they've increased their knowledge there, I can actually unseal this knowledge. Give me a break. Like God's waiting on that. All right, so here's the deal. You say, well, then actually then, to be a man of understanding out there in the day of wrath, I mean, that would be a great person to be. But may I show you, there's a price to be paid for that. Because if you're the Antichrist, who are you after? In my generation, we had the Vietnam War. And I remember there was a statistic. Second lieutenant would, crawl off the boat, with the rest of his platoon. And there was a little statistic that said the average lifespan of a second lieutenant from the time his feet hit the shore till a bullet hit him was so many minutes. And you know why that was? They were picking off the officers. So you know what they got to wear? They got to wear that, you know what? You didn't wear officer insignia. Everybody looked the same. Because that way you didn't become a special target. If you're the Antichrist and there's a man of understanding out there and he's educating the rest of this remnant, you know who you want. You want him. And the Bible tells you that very thing. Look here in Daniel 12. I'm sorry. I did that. Daniel 12. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. I'm sorry, verse 32. Now we get it. And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries. But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits. And they that understand among the people shall instruct many. Yet they shall fall by the sword and by flame, by captivity and by spoil many days. But doesn't that make sense, that describing what they're going to do? Those that understand. Isn't it funny that that's the word that's used? Because this is a man of understanding. Those that understand shall instruct many. But there's going to be a price paid for that. They're going to be hunted down. They're going to be killed in every manner they can be killed. In fact, they're going to be at the top of the hit list for the Antichrist. Because they're the ones that are actually making a difference, during that time on the side of the remnant. One more in Daniel chapter 12, verse 5. This is the next chapter. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood other two, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on that side of the bank of the river. And one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, How long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and a half. And when he shall accomplish to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. And I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. God's not going to unseal these things until you get over there to the time of the end. I believe even a man of understanding is not going to be able to unravel what the things that we've been reading until that particular point comes in the tribulation period. And then he will understand. But this other thing is, it says, none of the wicked will understand. I want to take you back to that verse that we saw in Isaiah where it said, they're going to stagger, but it's not because they're drunk with wine. It's going to be like a book that's sealed, and no one's going to get it. I'm going to take away the wisdom, remember, of their prophets and rulers, and their seers are going to be blinded. And he says, and I'll take away understanding from their prudent. He said, I'll do a marvelous work, and this is what I'm going to do. And it's almost like God is going to say, all you members of the apostate nation, you Antichrist, all you Gentiles that are with him, I'm going to make all y'all really stupid. And then all you members of the remnant, I'm going to educate you, but I'm going to send men of understanding in here that have understanding of these dark sayings, and they're going to show you exactly how you're supposed to conduct yourself. And that's what's getting done there. And now, taking you back to this at the end, I have shown you just about everything that I really firmly have enough grasp on in level 3 to be able to talk to you about without fear of having to come back later and go, man, I was so wrong, it's unbelievable. So I know it ain't much, it's all I got. One day I'll be a man of understanding, but the things that we'll be talking about then are going to be things that are sitting in our epistles. By the way, and you say, so that means that next week we go back to Romans 8, right? Almost. Almost. I do have to do 2 little things to wrap it up, just to wrap it up. Oh Lord, this is a hard-hearted people. Seeing they see not, and hearing they hear not. Because here's what I got to do. I do want to take you back, now that you've seen level 3, I do want to take you back to the exhortations that accompany this in Proverbs, to show you a couple of things about that. There's only one chapter that applies to a level 3 son in the exhortations, and that's Proverbs 9. The whole chapter is level 3. I want to show you some things about the exhortations. And the reason I want to show you is because we're going to take those things and move over to 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, and let me show you some analogies in our program. Thank you. Okay, so we'll do that. You say, how long will that take? A session, part of a session, or both sessions? I'm not sure. Times and half a time. Oh, y'all are just so, y'all are hard. Okay. Anyway,